Okay, this is just a very quick video for people who are beginners with Ableton. I just want to explain some of the kind of features of the interface and how to navigate around it. Especially if you've come from something like Logic or Cubase, which is much more linear. Obviously this might look a bit strange to begin with. So this is the default page it loads to. This is called the session view or the clip view. You see you have these, which we could call tracks or instruments. Maybe instruments is wrong. Maybe these you'd call instruments. They're MIDI tracks. The audio tracks is where you'd normally put samples or recorded material. To the left you've got the browser, so this is where we can find stuff to put on these tracks. So I'll just put a drum machine on a MIDI track and you just drag it on, or if you've selected the MIDI track you can just double click and then it will load. And by clicking on the top of the track, the write-in, it will show you what's on the track, like what's the instrument. So here's my 808 kit, and if I click on this one, here's my Abra kit. If I put a clip in here, and I'll just quickly program a beat, you can make stuff bigger and smaller. So yeah, just look, see, it's really important to watch where your cursor changes into different things, because you'll see on this, compared to a lot of other software, it changes into loads of different shapes. So you need to just get your head around what those shapes are. And when you're thinking, oh, why can't I zoom in? It's like, the cursor has to be there to zoom in, that kind of thing. And you will get it quite easily. So if we just program a quick beat. Now to program is very easy. You can just double click in here. You'll see there's a very faint grid in there. So you just double click and it will input it. And if I press play, you see we talked about this, but look, I've got a nice little play button now. That triangle we all know means play. So if we put a little snare in there, okay, now to switch between the instrument and the clip, it's very easy. You just either click on the write-in or you click on the clip. You'll also see down here, which took me years to figure out was actually a button, these two things are actually buttons. So if I click on this, that's a representation of the clip, and this is a representation of the instrument. So that's another way to do it. The audio clips, click tracks work very similar. So obviously they need some recorded material or a sample. So if I just find a sample here, why not this one, this 80s beat. So if I can just drag it on and hit play, and if I click on the clip, there we go. So instead of MIDI notes, we can now see audio material. So for both audio clips and MIDI clips, you'll see that the content is kind of here in the middle, and on the left hand side is the properties of that clip. So if I click on the MIDI, you can see, here we go, here's our properties of the clip. Things like where the start point is, so it's bar 1, beat 1, tick 1, but I can move it around. That's the start point, is that arrow. And then we've got our loop, and the loop is reflected by this bar at the top, these kind of brackets at the top. So I can make a short loop or a longer loop. So if we just play a short loop quickly. Okay, you get the idea. Again, but just pay attention to how your cursor changes. So like the speaker will play from somewhere, whereas the magnifying glass obviously zooms in and out. It's the same kind of features on the audio track, so zooming in and out, speaker. Now on audio tracks they're a bit different. We're going to go into more detail in that, but you can see the start points are the same, and we've also got loop is exactly the same. If you find yourself that you can't activate loop for any reason, it's probably because loop is turned off or warp is turned off. So to make audio tracks work, loop, you need to warp turned on and loop turned on, and to make MIDI tracks work, you just need loop turned on. Cool. I suppose the only other things then just to do with this interface on the clip, on the session view and the clip view, is the fact that the signal from these tracks comes out of the channel and it gets sent to whatever it says here, so to the master. Now if you get more excited, you could send it to different places, and that's a bit more advanced, we'll come to that at some point, but at the moment it all goes to master. So if I press both of these clips at once, I'll just turn it down so it's not too loud, you'll see they both get added together and put in the master track. So it's like a mixer. Cool. You can turn these some of these things on and off. So if you see this like kind of greyed out arrow, you can get rid of the browser. you can, with this grayed out arrow, you can get rid of the content or add it. This is actually quite useful here, this info view. I would keep this on if you're learning, because look, it shows you whatever your mouse is hovering over. So that's actually really useful. Over here on the left, sorry, the right, you've got these yellow buttons, and these turn on off different features of the mixer or the kind of interface. So I and O turns off your inputs and your outputs. So if I press that, you'll see gets rid of that. S gets rid of your sends. R gets rid of your returns. M gets rid of your mixer. Just as an aside, or not as an aside, but the sends is quite interesting. So if we think the signal is coming out of the channel to master, and then the master's coming out to the speakers, the sends lets us take a bit of that signal and send it to somewhere else. Now by default we have two sends set up, and so they are A and B, and you'll see that they refer to the returns A and B. Now by default it comes with a reverb and a delay on. However, there's no reason, you can change that to whatever you want. So if I send some signal to A, you should hear it with some reverb. There you go. If I send it to B, you'll hear the delay. Cool. So yeah, relatively straightforward. You can obviously add more return tracks, and by adding another one, you see another dial magically appears, so we can send signal to another place as well. The sends are very useful for any effects that you would like to have on more than one track. It's worth having a send. For one, it makes it easier. So if you suddenly decide, actually, I need less reverb on this track, you could on this composition, you could turn it down a little bit and have less on, or you could change the quality of the reverb and things like that. So if there's something you want consistency across multiple tracks, it's worth using sends. Right, that's going to be enough for this version.